Hello, Tiffy.
Hi, Yo-Yo. Hello, MBE project community.
Hello. Today we are completing the suit of wands, which is exciting because that means we are halfway done now
Hmm.
with this tarot journey.
Yep.
Before we get into the court cards today, I just wanted to ask you, what's new, babe? What's going on? What's new in the zoo?
Well, I just booked some foreign travel, just
Hmm.
a little bit of it, just a fraction of the trip I've booked, and I feel empowered that I've done that.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. It's not fun because I spend hours on there pining over what are the right decisions to make, and I probably should have used my tarot deck to guide me, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Especially the suit of wands, right?
Hmm.
Just throw down a few wands of the
I got
tarot.
the energy of this trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you going to take your deck with you?
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see.
There's a few times where I have traveled with my deck, and well, I used to keep a deck in my purse, and now I don't. But when I would travel, I would bring my deck with me just because it was like something to play with, you know,
Hmm.
like my adult toy. But that probably doesn't sound great. But this last trip when I went home for Christmas, I didn't bring my deck, and then maybe about like a few days in, I ended up going to the bookstore and buying a deck.
Hmm.
So
I bet you subconsciously left your deck at home just so you could purchase a new deck.
yes, I had a reason to purchase a new deck. Yeah,
Yep. Uh-huh.
probably.
I have a mini deck of playing cards in my purse, and I haven't dove too deep into it, but I've seen that you can kind of like assimilate the minor arcana of the tarot with the playing card suits.
I actually have a mini Rider-Waite Smith deck. They have
Oh,
miniature versions of those too. It's like pocket size. It's like
yeah.
that big. Yeah.
Yeah, my friend has one of those.
Hmm.
They're cute.
Oddly enough, that's not the deck I travel with, but maybe it should be. I completely forgot
Someone's
about
going
it.
on Amazon.com after this.
Right?
Oh, that
Yeah.
reminds me. I meant to go on Amazon.com earlier today. Anyways.
I don't even want to talk about what's in my cart. So I was thinking about it today, fire energy in general, because it might not still be, I think like an hour left, the moon will still be in Aries, but the sun is now in Leo, which is a fire
Hmm.
sign. And then the moon today was also in Aries, which is fire. And the reason it even dawned on me was because when this airs, this won't be true because we're recording a day early,
Hmm.
but the moon will be somewhere else. But anyway, I woke up just like a firecracker this morning, like, whoo, go, I'm ready to do stuff. And yeah,
Did you get a lot of stuff done?
I did get a lot done
Good.
this morning. But part of my daily meditation is that I write down like the day, the time, and I always look at what the moon phase is. So tomorrow, the moon will actually be in Taurus, but that's different energy. But anyway, so that's why it even occurred to me like, wow, all this fire energy today. No wonder I'm like, look,
Yeah.
I went straight into like, I had coffee, took a shower, and just went. As you can see, I've done nothing with myself visually because I just have been doing.
That's good.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow Taurus energy will make me want to adorn myself.
In
Hi.
upcoming podcasts.
Yeah, how's your energy today, by the way?
Um, huh. It's pretty good. I actually did a webinar on energy medicine a
Hmm.
little bit ago, and it reminded me how much I believe in that, and that like energy is what all of our makeup is. Um, and that even our physical form is energy, and our physical
Speaking
form
of,
that is matter is affected by the exterior energies.
there is a book about energy medicine, and I will have to send it to you, the link, because I think you would enjoy it.
Is it by Donna Eden?
No, I'll tell you in 1 second. It is by, I don't know, I'm going to send it to you, but it's called Energy Medicine, the Science and Mystery of Healing.
Yeah.
And the author she is an acupuncturist, but it's a good book. You'll see. I'm sending it to you now.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm. If you guys are interested, I'll put it in the show notes as well. So, okay, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
Fire, fire. So the court cards always make me think of like, not just the archetypes of these energies, which wands is fire, but it makes me think of like the mash tree, right? So, what do we do with our fire? What are the keys to our fire?
We
How do
use it
you
for
use your
motivation.
fire? Yeah, how can you use it in ways that are supportive? I guess that before we go into it, like just off the top of your head, when you think about your fire, how you direct your life force energy, your will, your drive, like what are some positive ways that you use your fire, or and what are some ways that you do it in a way that's possibly harmful?
So I see it two ways. I see the energy as a positive way, as really like focusing and like driving, like almost like I'm seeing like the fires in like a steam, not a steamboat, but like a train
Mm,
where they would like shove the coals into there and like move the train forward with the fire and
right.
however those work. I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, or the opposite is I see myself getting misdirecting my energies towards something that ticks me off, and then I get all bent out of shape and I expend all of this energy being bent out of shape about something, and it's kind of like setting it all on fire. I actually
Yes.
say it a lot when something really makes me mad. I'm like, I'm just going to light it all on fire.
Yeah, when I get angry, I actually feel like fireballs are forming like in my stomach, and that's how I refer to it. I'm like, "Ooh, I have fireballs," and I have to go and check myself because don't want to project that out. But that also is kind of like in line with how I think of directing my fire, or like how I'm directing and utilizing my energy, and really connecting with even the other elements first, because I have to look at my mind and like my air and my emotion, my water, before I exert out my fire or decide how I'm going to use it. So in a lot of ways,
Mm.
I think for me, I like to think of it as like stoking like my internal flame first, like managing that, so I don't have fireballs, but have like a healthy internalized fire that will support me in how I exert that energy out in the world, and like what I'm projecting in my field and these types of things. Yeah.
Hmm.
So let's see what these court cards have to tell us about wands, fire.
Hmm.
So we have the page first. And the page in the Rider Waite Smith deck. Um, Interesting. I never noticed this before. Those little mounds of sand behind him. It almost looks like pyramids.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, here it is. So those of you watching on YouTube, if you see the video, here is the page of wands. And always when I think of the pages in general, I always think of like youthfulness, youthful energy, which with fire can be very passionate. It can be very impulsive, very high energy. Like you think of like a child with like, whoo, honey, they are full of energy. What do you think of with this card?
When I look at this card, I think about how he's examining the wand. So it's almost like he's going internal to examine his own internal fire and what he has, like what creative energy he has to work with.
Oh, like me.
What do you mean?
Because I said I deal with my internal fire first
Oh,
before I
yeah.
exert it out.
Yeah. So it just looks like he's really in observance of what that wand is. And since it's a wand, when we think of wands, it's about creating something. And the wands and the fire is about creativity. So it
What
looks like,
can I create?
yeah, he's looking at it kind of like, oh, what does this hold and what can I create with it?
And with him wearing red, his tights and his cape underneath, and the feather in his cap, like
Hmm.
it's all red. Ow. Um, it reminds me of like maybe he's already, that flame is already activated within him, right? But
Mm.
just to your point, like this examination of really coming into that mindfulness of how am I going to use this energy? How am I going to direct my energy? And that's actually a good thing to stop and think about at the start of our day, or even before we start doing things. Like, do you ever take time to like just pause and consider, like, I'm about to do this thing. Let me check myself, check my energy before I dive into whatever it is I'm about to do.
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't. I think we function on automatic pilot. And if
Mm-hmm.
we really did understand how much of one's a suit of creation, and if we were really to sit and observe what our day could be like and see how we're going to create it and consciously and intentfully create that space and move through the day with the intention. And if we start to do that every day, how much we can see how much of our power truly lies within creating our own life.
Mm-hmm.
But we
I,
sometimes let life create it for us.
I think the Fool also has the same feather in his cap.
Yes.
And so also like thinking of like the childlike wonderment. So yeah, I think with this card, that is a good thing of what it brings to mind, like having consideration for how you may be directing your fire, being passionate about what you do. But even though you can be high energy, it doesn't mean like you have to be impulsive.
Mm-hmm. And this is the chakra wisdom tarot deck, and
Mm-hmm.
it links with the heart chakra. And there's two in the pip cards. There's two of each of the chakras. That gives us 14. So this is the second level of it, and I like how it's the heart chakra for the page. This one, it's the princess, but it's almost like it's linking it's taking our creativity of our human chakras and linking it with the spiritual ones and saying, how am I really going to actually manifest this
And in that
fire?
deck are all of the pages related to art.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So it's
Interesting.
almost like the momentum of the suit itself, how it can lend itself to blending the spirit and the humanity.
Yeah. Well, okay, Paige. Guess what we learned from you is like really having consideration of how we are directing our energy, especially if it's high, especially if we're full of it. Because it makes me think too, I mean, it's more, it can be more impactful. And I think a lot of times we don't think about that, like the level of energy like we put into things, right? So if we have this like high energy and we're like deeply passionate about something, that's going to influence like what it is we're creating or doing versus when you're kind of I don't feel like it,
Mm-hmm.
like you're
Yeah.
not really putting your heart into it. It makes a difference in the outcome of whatever it is that you're going to do or create.
Yeah, big time. And even just the observance of, am I putting negative energy into this thing because I don't really want to do it, but I'm making myself do it?
Check your
How
perspective.
yeah, how that affects the outcome.
Yep. Well, it's interesting, we gallop along to the night.
Gallop,
And
nice segue.
yeah, well, look at those three pyramids in the background. Looks like the pyramids
Oh,
of Giza, very similar to the three that are closer to
uh-huh.
the page, although next to him they look tiny. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
like
he's big.
he's moved away from them.
He may be like a giant though. Maybe he's a gigantic being.
Again,
Anyway,
perspective.
perspective. Yes. And here's the knight. Always, with the knight, we can think about action, moving forward. But the Knight of Wands is like more of an intense energy. It can be restless. This can also be very charismatic. But I mean, look at that horse. I mean, he looks like he is really galloping. He is charging ahead.
Yeah. It's almost like the page has transformed just a little bit more in intensity because now he's on a horse, he's moving faster, the feather in his hat has become bigger, and then he's got flames behind him, which maybe could be what his cape used to be. So it's like he's taken what he's contemplated about and now he's putting into action and moving forward with it.
Yeah. But what happens with that though? Like looking at the night and, we can be, I mean, on the high side, very charismatic, and I say think of like someone enters the room and their energy is just so big and beautiful that like they're noticeable, even if they don't necessarily say anything. They just have this certain charisma and like lightness and, you know, they light up a space. But on the other hand, I mean, like if you are full of fire and you just charge ahead, I mean, like, the intensity I think of like intense fire, it reminds me of like Leo or Aries, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
like just what even happens when like, whereas like an intense Leo energy might be again like that person that's just big and shiny and bright and you are going to notice them,
Mm-hmm.
period. Whereas like intense like Aries, I would think so a little more like reckless with the
Yeah.
fire, like a little more like rambunctious and kind of like the yeah.
So would you say that the knight represents both the Leo and the Aries?
Well, no, I would think the page would remind me more of maybe the Leo because that energy, like he looks kind of calm. Like his fire may be
Yeah.
intense and he may be very passionate, but it's not wild. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's kind of contained, and Leo's more of it's a fixed sign, whereas like Aries initiates fire, so it's more of like
Yeah.
charge, go, like lighting that flame, and that reminds me more, I guess, of this night.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I just think it's interesting that they're both wearing that chameleon robe too.
Yeah, and this deck where it's more detailed, the king has that
Yep.
on his things too, on his cape, whatever it is. So what about you all, like listening, when you think about even just these two, when you think about being high energy versus being kind of like restless energy, because there is a difference, you know, like you could be
Mm-hmm.
high energy and not necessarily be restless,
Yeah.
but then that restless energy is, you know, it just
Yeah. I see it as you're describing it that way. I see it as like, for me, for my personal experience, when I'm teaching, that's my fire and it's contained and it has the direct conduit that it's like leaving my body and presenting itself. But when I'm at home downloading information to put into my courses online, the fire is ping ponging off my cement walls all over the place because I'm like,
right.
what am I going to do with all of this?
Yes.
So it's almost
Actually,
like the channel of the fire.
it reminds me too, I mean, looking at the two of these again, like Paige, like having maybe high energy or feeling very passionate, it feels good, you know, like it feels like I'm alive. Okay, it's great. But when I think of more of like a restless energy or mm, just like an intense feeling, like intense fire, that can be really nerve wracking, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That one makes me think of like, how do I temper my fire, or how do I channel it in a way where it's going to be useful?
Right. Or how do I observe that this fire is intense and I don't have it channeled well? So how can
Right,
I start to bring that in and lend itself to a channeled focus?
right. And I guess again, it's like those things, or it's circumstantial. Like there, I guess there would be different situations where maybe more of like the page energy would be more beneficial versus like maybe there are times where the night is more beneficial, especially that one. I think of like if you have to really lead other people, it may be great to have like that charisma, like a public speaker, not a public, what are those people called? Like the people that inspire people.
Motivators?
Yes, like a motivational speaker.
Yeah. That's it. I knew we would get there together.
Oh, that's why I love you. Yeah, this reminds me of that kind of energy. Like it could be positive as like a motivational speaker, maybe.
Well, interestingly enough, as we move up the chakra system, the knights
Ah,
are the throat chakra.
mm,
Yeah, so it's like observing and blending the human with the spirit into the heart to create manifestation and then actually expressing it out into the world with the night.
yeah. So be mindful of your fire. Build it up. Connect with your passion with the page, and then think about how are you exerting that stuff.
Mhm.
Magic.
Yep.
Okay.
I watched a silly movie last night.
Oh goodness, what was it?
Isla Fisher was in it and she played kind of like
I don't know who that
that
is.
role that she always plays. Oh, she's married to Borat. You got to get on your pop
Oh, I
culture.
know who Borat is.
She's the
Okay, so
tiny
she's
little
the funny
redhead.
one.
She's
Yes.
very funny, yeah.
Yep.
And she just plays that typical role. And at one point, she's just kind of like the dumb friend. And she was like, "Is magic really real?" It was very funny. Anyways, the queen. Sorry, I had to get it out. It was a funny moment.
We're moving up the court, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you have about the queen, honey?
She got a kitty cat in the picture with her.
Oh, of course, that's what you notice.
Yeah.
Ah, the cat
But
reminds me of like Bast.
Bast?
Uh-huh.
What's that?
This Bastet Bast, the Egyptian cat goddess.
Oh, I'm glad I clarified that for all of us.
Well, I mean, again, look at those pyramids are in the background.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
her throne with the two lions, I mean, it's very similar to a sphinx
Uh-huh.
on the
Uh-huh.
sides of her chair.
What I really noticed, like what really sticks out to me in this are the sunflowers.
Yeah. They're on her throne and she's holding one.
Yeah.
So the thing about the Queen of Wands is she is very generous. It can also be a symbol of a honest leader, and it's someone who enjoys the spotlight. So again, Leo, and maybe with the cat there and the two on the sides that look very similar to a sphinx. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this again is like, will you come into that energy of? Because I think a lot of us, you know, we struggle with it in different ways. Sometimes we don't want to be seen because we don't want to be criticized, or we don't want to be seen because we just have insecurities. Like, who knows what it is? But if you really need to tap into this energy of feeling confident, but what do you call it? Like kind in your confidence. You know what I mean? It
Humbled.
actually, yeah, humble with your confidence. That's what the Queen of Wands reminds me of. And it also is making me think of the Strength card, which is the woman, the maiden, like taming the lion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful card. And
And
it's interesting because her little staff, like if you look back at the page, and the page has like a few leaves on his wand, so does the knight, but her wand is kind of bare, but she has a sunflower. So it kind of seems like she has it just reminded me of
manifested the
a,
creative energies from the
yeah, like her
okay.
creative energy was directed in a way that she created something beautiful, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
this sunflower being symbolic of like nature, she's able to create. So she's using her energy in a way to create.
Yeah, and this one and with the strength card and the major arcana, there's so much yellow in both of them. That's something that I
Mm-hmm.
notice about it too. And yellow is a color of self-expression
Yeah.
and illumination and liveliness. So it's just a card that seems very alive. So it's like she's really taken her creative expression and like put it out, given its own life out in the world.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like creative fire. Go ahead, Queenie. I like her.
Yeah.
How do you ever have times where you need to tap into like that kind of inspiration, you know, because there, you know, like we often hear about creative blocks. And a lot of times when we talk about being seen, we think like literal, like ourself, like we're being seen right now on the podcast because it's a video. But for a lot of people, the way that they're seen is through what they create or like what they
Mm-hmm.
produce, right? So like an artist, if you go to a store and buy art on your wall, like that's that person's expression, even though they're not physically there. So I think this reminds me of that too. Like, how are you being seen in your expression, creative expression? Like, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
how
I
can you do it with grace?
Yeah, and I think a really important thing to speak to about that is to really see how do you see yourself in your self-expression. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just get stuck right there at step one of like, how do I see myself and how do I express out in the world? Because I think a lot of us struggle with what we put out into the world is not how we truly are, and that can be misinterpreted. So maybe, I mean, maybe even take a poll, ask people, how your friends, how they see you, because you might find that there's a disconnect between how you think you're putting yourself out in the world and how they see you, because that could either reveal to yourself some self-limiting qualities, or maybe give you a new opportunity of how to express out in the world to what you truly want, because they might be seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself as well.
Right. And I just thought of too, like this fire of hers, like how creative and powerful she is. She's in the middle of a desert
Mm-hmm.
and she created a sunflower.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it looks dry and barren. Like even, looking at the previous two, the wands, the knight and the page, there is no sign of water, moisture, anything anywhere. And here she is with her beautiful sunflower.
Yeah, she's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Honey,
Your
she's like,
sun
I
don't bother me.
shine. I
Your
can
lack of
create
nutrients.
whatever I want.
Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Your lack of nutrients, desert won't stop me.
Well, I think that's the thing too, right? Like really recognizing that creative force within yourself and honoring that you have the ability to create whatever you want,
Mm-hmm.
and, it's not like she's restricted by like, oh, there's no water here. No, she used whatever she knew how to do to produce the result that she wanted.
Because why? Because everything we need is inside of us, not around us.
There you're going to say, because she's a woman.
Well, that too.
That's funny. Okay, so we have the king, her
Yeah,
beautiful counterpart,
the king.
the king.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting because if you put them side by side, I guess if you put her first, it looks like they're gazing at each other, or in reverse, they're looking in opposite directions.
I like them looking at each other.
They're looking at each other, yeah. And the king, he is wearing red, where she had on yellow. His garb is red, and this energy is very straightforward. It's also symbolic of like someone that's an entrepreneur and confident. And I think that's interesting because for me, image wise, confidence would be depicted with him looking at us, like straight on looking at us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I guess he's staring at his love. What do
So
you
what are
think
you
about
saying?
this
He's
card?
looking away, so he doesn't need to be confident by looking at us?
No, actually, maybe there's something to them looking together
Mm-hmm.
and like that unifying force of fire. So,
I'm going to give you a little anecdote that just popped into my brain.
but it's making me think of like our spiritual fire, our spiritual flame, which we can only like harness in a way of harmonizing that feminine and masculine. And so them looking at themselves, that's why it's making me think of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of my favorite bands.
Mm-hmm.
The what?
That thing.
Real
I
life
should know all
application.
your bands by now because you always have your bands as a reference, and I still
I
don't know
do.
any of them.
I
Okay, who is
know.
it?
Oh, you want me to tell you what band it was? I wasn't going to say it just so
Oh,
it's not
you don't have
distracting.
to.
I will. It's Tool. They're one of my
And
top two
well,
favorites.
that's like the only one you ever say. But okay, go ahead.
Is it on this?
Yes.
Okay, I love Tool, okay? So Tool, the lead singer, he has several bands, but particularly for Tool, when they perform, he performs in the back of the stage, like next to the drum kit. So, and off to the side. So he's actually never out front and present. And this man has presence, and I just think it's really interesting since you said, and a lot of times he sings sideways too. So while it is a performance, it's almost like he's so confident in what he's created that he does not need to be up front and center and being distracted from what the creation is.
That reminds me of, again, like the strength card in a way, where I think a lot of people, when we are trying to project confidence, it comes off like this forceful, very tried thing, whereas
Mm-hmm.
there's something very different with someone who's like comfortable in their skin, and it's just
Yeah,
like a natural projection of confidence. But it's like this connectedness to themselves, and it's not like this energy that they're trying to push or force out.
right.
Yeah.
I think something interesting also that's notable on this is we were talking about did we call them chameleons or salamanders, whatever?
Yeah.
They're on the clothing of the page in the night, and it's on the cape of the king as well. But there's a little one that's off. He's actually on the ground.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out
And then she has the
why.
cat. Hers is going to eat it.
Cats don't eat salamanders. Well, and here's a good point why.
I don't know that
Because
that's
I
not
looked it up.
true.
I'm like, what's the deal with these salamanders? And yes, black salamanders, they apparently have fireproof skin, which is interesting that
Oh,
it's
that
resistant
is
to fire.
interesting.
Yeah, I haven't kind of really downloaded the whole connection with it, but the one thing that I noticed, I thought it was super interesting that the ones on the page in the night, they're
Huh?
bigger on their clothes. And then the pattern gets smaller because there's more on the king, but then there's that one that's actually off and alive.
So you're telling
So,
me that the king and queen are the mother and father of dragons?
oh.
Yes. Will not be
Well,
burned by the fire.
and they both have the lions on the back of their thrones.
Yeah.
See that there?
Well, it reminds me both of them, whereas like the page and the night seem like their fire is less refined, right? Their fire is like the page is more impulsive and the night might be more intense. But then you move into the king and the queen, and they both are more refined with their fire. Like she is very confident even in her posture, but she's using her creative nature, her life force, her fire, and a way to create very easily. And then
Mm-hmm.
the king, he's also like his confidence, his fire also seems very like refined, and it's projected in a way where it's just confident.
Yeah, like they've
So I,
mastered it. They've
yes,
mastered the
they
pursuit of
both
their
seem like
creativity.
mastery of fire,
Uh-huh.
like what you will. So like the queen shows us that we can with our will create really anything, how we direct that
She's right.
fire. And he is like the embodiment of fire, just being in that light that is you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Oof.
it.
We are powerful.
Aren't we?
We are.
It's amazing being human once you recognize all the layers to it
It's true.
and how you see the layers to it, right?
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, like we would love to hear what comes up for you, what you think the court cards tell you or help you consider regarding your fire, like your examination of it, how you exert it, if it's refined, if it's out of control. What comes up for you in these cards? What do you see in the imagery? Share with us.
Yeah. And speaking of perspective, like what jumps out of the card to you? Because what
Mm-hmm.
we see is different. What we're talking about what we see, but you might see something drastically different than what our perspective is showing. And we
I
would love
also
to hear
think it's
that.
interesting, like how you said the three of them have salamanders and the queen doesn't. But then the wand, the page, the knight, and the queen all have pyramids and the king doesn't.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting she has a cat.
That's because she's like, I don't want a reptile, I want a furry kitty.
I feel like too she has her eye on you. It's her what do you call it? What do witches call their animals? There's a
They're
name for it.
familiars.
Yes, like this is her familiar. And even though she's looking off to the side, honey, that cat has his good eye on us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Honey, the queen isn't missing a thing.
I want a cat familiar.
Oh, honey, you just want a cat.
I know it's true, but I also want it to be my familiar.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that for
I
you.
know.
So, what suit are we going to next time? Are we going wands or swords?
We just finished
We
wands.
just finished wands. Are we going pentacles? I think we said we're doing pentacles and ending on swords.
I believe that was. Is that what
Yeah.
you want to do? Or do we want to end on swords?
Do we want to go there next?
It's not that we don't like the swords,
Listen,
you
on this
guys.
tarot journey,
It's
everybody,
just
we're skipping swords now.
take them out of your deck and burn them.
Right. You know what? Let's go swords, because then that
Let's go
way
swords. Yeah.
we'll end on pentacles before our own
Abundance.
adventures.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. This is good. This is good. Yeah.
Sounds
And
good.
I mean, swords is it's the suit of decision. So let's just do
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make a decision.
Yeah, don't be scared
Um,
about coming back for the swords. It'll be great.
yeah,
It'll be
so
great.
before we lead up into that, just like as a recap, even for yourself, go back with the Suit of Cups and consider your relationship to water, your element of water, your relationship to your emotion, the intuitive mind, all of these things. Then allow yourself to play with this, looking at the wands and considering what your relationship is to fire and how you're directing your life force, your own will, your drive. And then when we do the swords, which will start next week, don't forget, if you're a patron, the last Wednesday of this month, we will have a live event where we talk about the air signs. So we
Hmm.
look forward to seeing you for that. I think
Yeah.
that's on the 31st.
Is
Air
that
signs. Woohoo! It's my time.
is that next
Yeah.
Wednesday? I know. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a week from tomorrow. How did
All
July
right.
fly by
Oh my
that
God,
quickly?
is it only a week
January.
left?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it
Oh,
anymore.
knock it off.
Yeah, we got a laundry list to do.
Okay, MB Insiders, next week we will see you for the live event. I cannot
Yes, we
believe.
shall. I know. I know.
Okay, well, July is almost out of here. Happy birthday to all the Leos out there.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you for sharing your gorgeous light with us. And that's a wrap. Is
It is a wrap.
that it for
That's the way we
once?
go.
Goodbye.